There is a supernatural world that surrounds us. Sometimes it manifests to people like you and me who have stories about this, so much more. Right here on Supernatural Confrontations, I am at the Prophecy Watchers Conference. I'm joined by Pete Garcia. We're going to be talking about where the Lord is directing his steps, his ministry, and how we got there. But first, a word from our very trusted sponsor. Gold has gone mainstream. You're seeing it everywhere, and prices keep climbing. Every day, more and more Americans are catching on to the power of gold. But how do you actually take advantage of it? How do you invest in a way that's safe, simple, and built for the long run? That's where Noble Gold Investments comes in. Noble Gold specialists are trained to help investors like you go from confused to confident, from wondering what's next to knowing exactly what to do. Whether you're looking to roll over an old 401k into a gold IRA, or you want physical coins and bars delivered right to your home, Noble Gold makes the process simple, safe, and stress-free. You'll get step-by-step guidance, transparent pricing, and U.S.-based service from a team that's handled over $2.5 billion in precious metal transactions. With Noble Gold Investments, protecting and growing your wealth isn't just their job, it's their commitment. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com today to claim your free wealth protection kit. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. Noble Gold, helping you build a stronger future. Folks, Peggy and I invested in it several years ago. It has gone through the roof, and I don't think it's going to stop yet. Remember, folks, there's always a risk with any type of financial investment. Take a look at what Noble Gold has to offer. Peggy and I did it several years ago. I'm really glad we did. It's hovering right around 4,000. Who knows where this thing is going to go? So, noblegoldinvestments.com, noblegoldinvestments.com. I'm here with Pete Garcia. Pete, thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Ellie.
Absolutely. Tell us how all this, the nexus, the beginning of your ministry, how all this became, how it all started.
So, grew up in a Christian home. I got saved at the young age of about 6 or 7 in Madisonville, Texas. From there on, we grew up attending Southern Baptist churches, and it was very, I don't want to say legalistic, but you go through the, you don't drink, you don't dance, you don't chew, don't go with girls who do stuff.
I've heard that. I know.
And so that was kind of my walk. And I struggled with my salvation. Every time I did something wrong, I thought I lost it. Every time I did something right, I thought I gained it back. And so by the time I was 18, I basically walked away from the church. I was ready to walk away, and I did. And for about 15 years, I was drifting pretty hard. And in that time, I was in the Army. I graduated from college. I was bartending through college, and very involved in the clubs and stuff in Austin, Texas. And then I got commissioned, went back in, and so around the September of 2007. I was a captain in the 101st. I was flying helicopters. I was partying all the time. One of my lieutenants, I was really close with, he and I would go out on the weekends to Nashville. And so it was a second weekend in September. We'd come back from Iraq. We'd been back for a few months at that point. And there was a girl at a church that I liked, a local church there in Clarksville, Tennessee. And so I was only going to church every once in a great while just to see if she was there. And anyways, I go in one weekend in September. I think it was the second weekend of September 2007. And back then we didn't have iPhones. We just had those little Nokia flip phones and stuff.
That's right.
We could.
Those were the days.
I go in and I'm sitting there, and at that time they were trying to raise money for a new building. So this was the third service. I was sitting in the very far back of the church. There wasn't anybody in front of me by several rows, nobody behind me. I was at the very back, nobody to my left or right. And I'm hungover, and I'm thinking like, God, of all the Sundays I could come, I have to come when they're doing a money drive kind of thing, So I'm getting ready to get up and leave at this point, I'm not feeling it. And so right before I do, I hear somebody come up and say something to me. I mean, clear as day. And it wasn't inside my head. It wasn't, a stream of consciousness.
So it's an audible voice.
It was an audible voice.
Okay.
And it came from my right side. So I turned to the right to look.
There's no way there.
And there wasn't anybody there. So then I'm looking, behind me on the row, and make sure nobody was hiding back there. That I was looking under the seats for like little speakers. I'm thinking maybe I'm getting pranked or something.
Right, right.
And sure enough, there wasn't anybody there. So at this point, I'm kind of freaked out. And I know what I heard, and it was clear as day. And at that point, I'm not very conversant in Christianity, churchianity, whatever. I barely remembered anything from high school or Sunday school. And I know enough to know that God's not the only one that can talk to me. So
There you go.
at that point in time, I just prayed, God, I don't know if this is from you, but if it is, and the first thing I thought of, because I'm sitting there looking at the front of the church there, said, have the pastor call me. And this guy, again, this was about 900 people attended this church. They had three services. I could walk past this guy in Walmart. Just us two in the aisle. He wouldn't recognize me. So he didn't really know me. And that was Sunday. And Wednesday by noon, that dude called me. I was on the flight line. We're running up aircraft. And my phone's ringing. I don't recognize the number. It's, again, Nokia. I pull it out. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, hello? He goes, hey, this is Pastor so-and-so. I don't remember his name now, but from the church. And we got your visitor's card from months and months ago. And I must have filled it out at some point. And they had never contacted me until that day, So at this point, my jaw's on the floor. I'm kind of telling him what happened. And this guy now thinks I'm probably nuts.
Right.
And but yeah, clear as day, man. 3 words I heard, and that set me on the trajectory to where that was part one of the trajectory going forward, And I this is the first time this has ever happened to me, kind of thing. The end of that month, I had to go to San Antonio for a school for the military, and so my lieutenant was back at Fort Campbell in charge, and I'm there. It was like a Saturday night. I can't remember the exact day. I think it was the 7th of October. And it was the night of the 6th going into the morning of the 7th.
Okay.
And I was there with my girlfriend at the time, and I had just broken up with her. That ensued in this 2-hour argument, fighting kind of thing. And so we had finally gone to sleep. And so it's about 2:30 in the morning. And I'm laying on my stomach, and I have my phone on the floor, and it's, again, Nokia. It's got this clear yellow case, so when it lit up from a text message or whatever, it was really bright, so it woke me up. And I look at it, and I see that it's my lieutenant, and I'm not using his name on purpose, but I see that he's texting me. He's like, hey, where are you? What are you doing? Or, something to that effect. And I was like, I'll talk to him tomorrow, And no, it wasn't a text. It was a phone call. That's where it was. I was going to text him back, but I never did. I said, I'll just talk to him tomorrow.
Huh.
And then that next day, I forgot. In the morning, I forgot. And I was at lunch with some friends that I grew up with. He was a retired Master Chief in the Navy. I'm there with his wife and his daughter, and we're all having lunch together. And at the time, my commander called. And so this is a Sunday. I'm on TDY orders to a school in San Antonio, out of state. So I'm thinking this has got to be pretty serious. And he says, hey, Pete, where are you? And I'm like, well, I'm, at friends eating lunch. And he's like, I need you to go outside. And I'm like, all right. So as I'm walking out of the house, I excuse myself from my friends. And I'm thinking like, oh man, I'm in trouble. Or, one of my soldiers got in trouble. Or, I'm thinking a million different things in my head, like what happened? And I go outside, and he said, are you alone? I'm like, yes, I am. And he's like, well, we had a death in the unit. So the first thing in my head, I'm thinking like Joe Snuffy, soldier, private, killed, car accident kind of thing. That happens more often than you think. And I said, well, who was it? And he said, well, it was your lieutenant, your friend. And I was like, that's impossible, because he called me last night at like 2:30 in the morning. He goes, yeah, he shot himself at 3. And you talk about, I was standing there, and my truck was behind me, and it felt like, I'd gotten kicked in the chest by a horse. It literally, all the air sucked out of me.
Right.
And I just slumped back against the truck, and I was telling him, at this point, I was crying. I was like, hey, how can that be, So,
was there any indication that he was suicidal?
Not,
do you recall?
Not in the traditional sense. He was doing some enhancements for weightlifting and things, so I think that had probably something to do with physiology.
Yeah.
He was drinking quite a bit, and we all drank a lot back then. But he was a bigger guy. He could drink, a fifth of rum by himself, still be standing. So, as it was explained to me, that was the anniversary of his, he was going through a divorce. He'd only been married to some lady that he met in flight school for very briefly. And so it was kind of just a terrible situation to begin with, but that was like going to be the final day, the day that it was final. So I didn't know that was going on at the time. He never told me that. And so there's a lot of things I didn't know about him and what he was doing personally, but so he had a lot of, demons, his own personal demons that he's wrestling with at that point. But so that was part 2 of my transition from the old me to like where God has taken me. And I'm not saying God did that. I'm saying that somehow I was tied in with that situation.
That was a wake-up call.
It was. And I know at that moment I had never really shared the gospel with him.
What were the 3 words that you given?
Prepare the underground. And again, I wasn't into prophecy. I was like, that wasn't my wheelhouse. I was into partying, chasing girls, flying, new cars.
It's Top Gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're living the Top Gun movie.
I'm living the life. And I was like, what does that mean? I don't even know what that meant. I didn't even know I still kind of wrestle with it today, but especially coming from this, where I didn't care about prophecy. None of this stuff mattered to me.
Right.
And so that was part 1. My friend's, very personal death hit me, it shattered any of the illusions that I had that I could just live my life however I wanted to. And then the last part of this was, I had met my wife, who I had met through like a pen pal. And this, at the time, Iraq was still going on strong. Afghanistan was going on strong.
Wow.
I'd already been to Iraq. I was getting ready to go to Afghanistan. And this is one of those kind of pen pal things. And so I connect with her. And as I had gone down to Texas, I stopped and had dinner with her. We had a great time. And so it changed me in the sense that I need to stop messing around and get serious with my life. So I ended up getting married to her within like 3 months.
Wow.
It was 18, something years ago. And a week after we got married, I go to Afghanistan. But somewhere in that window of time, I don't know the exact date, I was praying to God, and I said, God, I don't want to read the Bible. It's boring. It's the last thing I want to do, but give me a hunger for that. Make me want to read it. And then secondly, help me to understand it, because I was a dummy. I could barely remember my Sunday school lessons, Noah in the ark and Daniel and I knew kind of I didn't even know where they were in the Bible. I just knew that I remembered them from the Bible. And, he did. Somewhere in that process, I stumbled, and I didn't buy it. I came across it somehow accidentally, was Chuck Missler's Learn the Bible in 24 Hours.
There you go.
And dude, that lit a fire under me that has not gone out yet.
Wow.
And it connected the Bible in such a way to show how supernatural it is. And I always thought of the Bible as like history or, religion, or kind of, do this, don't do that. But when you see it from the supernatural aspect,
everything changes.
It changes you forever.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's basically where it all stemmed from. And for the next 3 years, I was just engulfed in the Bible. And the crazy thing was I retained it. I retained it all. As a child, I must have ate a lot of paint chips or something, because I was a terrible student, all through school. But this stuck. It stuck in a way that I can't explain it. Even to this day, I can't explain it.
Well, that's the Lord's anointing on you, equipping you for what He's going to do in your life. So how is that Prepare the Underground? Has that manifested at all?
Yet. I didn't know at first, because I didn't know what that meant. And so I thought maybe I should join the Gideons, or I should join some prison ministries, which I'd done a little of both at that point. And then somehow I came across Jack Kinsella's Omega Letter. And, even then, the internet was kind of like a Wild West of belief system stuff. And
very
I
much so.
didn't know what was right, pre-wrath, post-trib, amil, like it was all over the place. I came across the Omega Letter in the way that Jack was talking through like the Trinity, or whatever the issue was that I was reading initially that drew me in. He explained it in this kind of like dumbed down way for guys like me to understand it. And I just I connected with that. And with about a year, I'm involved in that little community there, that little tiny comma in the sentence of the internet, that goes on both ends forever. I was just in a little corner there, and Jack asked me to write. And I'm like, dude, I I've never written anything like this before. And I was kind of like, I don't know. I'm honored that you're asking me, but I don't, well, who am I, And eventually they got me into writing. And so I wrote my first article, Misery Loves Company. And I was just sharing an experience in Mexico on a mission trip that we'd gone on at the church, 20 years earlier, like 10, 15 years earlier. And we were out there on the street corner preaching, or my youth pastor at the time was like 90, 91. Wow. You can hear gunshots going off in the background. So that shot over there, it was pretty freaky, but I wrote about that. And then here I am, what is it? From 2011 to, what is that, 15, 14 years later, 700 plus articles. I've lost track of how many I've written, 6 or 7 books, now YouTube and all the other, avenues I've gone down. The Lord's opened all these.
Where do you think we are on the prophetic timeline? What are you looking for? What's your finger on the pulse, if I can use that analogy?
Yeah. Well, I don't, we obviously can't look for signs for the rapture since it doesn't have there is no signs for the rapture, but we are seeing the beast kingdom, the infrastructure being built up in an exponential manner. It's like, it's faster than any of us thought would come.
It's unbelievable. And now with AI,
yeah,
I don't know what's real anymore.
Yeah, deep fakes and all that stuff is making discerning. The truth is being eroded in every
facet. I agree. Truth is thrown to the street.
I do believe that there is a shelf life to some of this stuff. And like, for example, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, these guys have ideas of off-planet colonization, etc. I don't think God's ever going to let them go that far, because in Revelation, the warning is always to the earth dwellers, those who dwell on the earth, and
that's true,
those left behind. So if we have people living off planet, then obviously those judgments would not apply to them. So God's not going to let them get past that Tower of Babel moment. But up until that point, I think we're right, probably, I don't know, I'd say single digit years from the rapture, just giving how close we are to the what seems to be the starting of the tribulation, the 70th week of Daniel. All right, so just like in Acts chapter 1, where you have the disciples standing around watching Christ ascend, and then the 2 angels appear and say, "Ye men of Galilee, why are you standing here?" That Christ will return in the like manner. So Christ ascended 40 days after the Feast of First Fruits, but 10 days before Pentecost. So he didn't ascend on a feast date, and I don't think the rapture of the church necessarily is tied in with a feast date. It could. But what we do take notice of is that Christ fulfilled the first 3 feasts within just a few days of, with his death, with 1, 2, 3, 3 days total, right? And then we have the Pentecost, 50 day comes down, and the church is conceived that day. I believe the church now is in spiritual utero, that we're growing as this body of believers in utero, in spiritual sense, right? Which is why we see all the language for birth pains, and in Romans chapter 8, we're waiting to be born, kind of that language we see there. So I think that we are now in this moment, probably, if I want to put it into pregnancy languages, I have 5 kids, so I'm very familiar with the trimesters and all that. I think we're at the very end between the Braxton Hicks and like the actual start of the track. So I tend to think that the rapture won't happen on a feast day, but it may happen. I'm kind of leaning to the summertime period. I kind of see that the gap between the spring and the fall feast is that perfect time. I lean a little bit toward Tish B'Av. It's not a Moedim. It's not a traditional biblical feast day, but is associated with Israel, with a national day of mourning and tragedy. And a great article years ago came out, A Pattern with a Hole in It by Greg Lauer, talked about how the first temple was destroyed on Tish B'Av by the Babylonians. Second temple was destroyed by the Romans. Same time, Tish B'Av. And now we are the body of Christ. We are filled with the Holy Spirit. We're housing the Holy Spirit in this present dispensation. And it seems like the church could be removed on that Tish B'Av, taken up. And that should be a wake-up call, red flag for a lot of the Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox, and those observant Jews that are kind of paying attention to this stuff, that their biggest cheerleaders, if you will, are now all gone off the face of the planet. So that's kind of where I am. I'm not saying that it has to be that way, but going back to this idea of preparing the underground, when we read Revelation 12 about how God has prepared the Israelites on the wings of eagles, he's going to fly them out of into safety, into the desert, to the mountains or whatever. I kind of think that what God is doing now with our ministry, yours and many other watchers, is that we are normalizing this conversation about that we're in the last days. We're making it public, even if people make fun of it. At least they're addressing it. That it is a thing. They know what it is, and that immediately after the rapture, a lot of this stuff is going to be shut down. And so I'm glad for the multimedia platforms that we have: DVDs, magazines, YouTube, streaming, books, etc. I mean, as much as we can get out there, because the second that the rapture happens, Satan is then going to have to control that narrative. And he may do that through deception, with these comets flying by. They're all of a sudden kind of coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
He may use aliens. We don't know if they'll be hostile, friendly, but I can't think of how he spent the last 70 plus years building this lore, building the normalization, and that we're not alone, that there's these things out there. And so I think you coined that phrase, when we go up, they come down, or whatever.
Yeah. That's
I'm fully on board with believing that that's going to happen at some point. And so I've shared with you other videos. I had some supernatural stuff, that demonic possession in my room,
right.
The voice or whatever it was, that me hearing that audibly and
It's
not
horrifying.
being able to explain what was happening, hearing the words in the church, prepare the underground. I think and if you read Revelation 3, and then why I named my website and my ministry after Rev 310, there was a passage there in Revelation 8 where it talks about that Christ has the keys of death and hell, and he is got the keys of David, and he opens the doors and no man shuts. And then we see in verse 4, chapter 1 and 2 of Revelation, where there's a door open in heaven. I think God is keeping this door open now so that we can get the message out, because the only way that you're going to be able to counteract supernatural signs and wonders, and people are going to be blown away.
Yeah, it's coming.
Is if they're forewarned, which is why Christ always told them things ahead of time. He's like, I tell you these things ahead of time, so when it happens, you believe. If I tell you that something supernatural is going to happen, and it's going to be lying signs and wonders, and then it happens later on, but I already told you about that was going to come that way, that's a way to disarm that. And that's how the power of truth has, and we have that in Scripture. So
it's quite a mouthful. Thanks for coming on the record. How do people, support you, look at your stuff, contact you?
So my main ministry is through the website, rev310.net. And then
Revelation, REV10, right?
Yeah, somebody thought I was a reverend. I was like, no, not a reverend. It's Rev310 for Revelation310.net. And then I'm on YouTube, a little bit on Rumble. I'm on X, Instagram, and Facebook.
So Rev10, is it a colon and then 3, or just Rev10.3?
Rev3, so it'll be Rev, REV3, 10, no colon or anything.
Okay.
It's .net,
right.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. Pete Garcia, thanks for coming on the record. Really appreciate it, sir.
Thanks, LA.
God bless you. There you have it, folks. Lots going on. Thanks for coming here. Hit the subscribe button. If you want to become a member, that's a great thing too. Membership gets members-only content, 10% off everything in the store, and of course, our monthly news magazine comes to you for free. Thanks so much for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with yet another episode of something. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching.
It is a beautiful day up here in the 49th state, so I thought I'd take advantage of this good weather window before the snow comes and get out here and look for some tracks and tree structures. If you're wondering about my shirt already, yep, I'm an L.A. Marzulli guy. So L.A. Marzulli, in case you don't know who he is an established author, commentator, and filmmaker. And we had him on the show about a year ago, and we got a lot of heat for that show. And the reason we got heat is because there's a lot of people in the Bigfoot research community that absolutely come unglued if you come from a biblical perspective, namely the Nephilim connection theory where it relates to Sasquatch. And they just come unglued about that. And we got heat. But they were really saying more about themselves than they were about us. So we appreciated that L.A. Marzulli took the time to come to our small podcast and talk to us about the alien phenomenon, as well as the Nephilim connection theory where it relates to Sasquatch. So we encourage you to go check out his website at lamarzulli.net. He's got a lot of great stuff over there. And yeah, in case you're not familiar with the Nephilim connection theory, look into it.
The late Russ Dizdar and I created the Nephilim Mounds conferences, and we had people like Gary Stearman there, Chief Joseph Rivler, of course, Fritz Zimmerman. I mean, he's the guy that got me on the trail of a Nephilim, which resulted in 8 films. And number 9 is coming out soon. But guess what? Here's the Nephilim Mounds collection. There are hours and hours of presentations. Gary Stearman, Fritz Zimmerman, Chief Joseph Irwin, yours truly, and others weigh in on the Nephilim. And you know what, folks? You can see right here the Great Serpent Mount. Yeah, we believe that's Nephilim architecture, fallen angel technology. So for $60, you get all these DVDs here. It's absolutely incredible. There are 11 discs in this set, plus a bonus DVD, Watches 6, The Secret Cosmic War. This is when we went to Peru. And with our guide, Brian Forrester, we learned and ventured to what we believe is fallen angel technology, Nephilim architecture, and it's pre-flood. Go to lamarzulli.com, lamarzulli.com. What are you waiting for? Avail yourself. There's so much teaching, so much good stuff in this 11-disc set. Plus, you get the bonus DVD. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon.